This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And we're continuing to keep the ball rolling, man. We're almost around that time frame where we're going to get ready to start talking about conference previews and, preview awards, NBA preview awards preview and all kinds of crazy talk and conversation, man. So it's really an exciting time and stuff. I mean, look, man, if you're catching this on YouTube, even our man Jokic is just like shook. Like he can't believe that we actually are so close to NBA season. It wasn't just too long ago that we were watching our man, you know what I'm saying, get his celly on, you know what I'm saying, for winning that chip. So obviously, man, it's a great time for us to be talking about the NBA and got another great show on tap. So let me go and roll out the red carpet. To my right hand man, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC, my man, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's good, Mr. Shaw? Hey, man, I love how you got all of these superstars lined up. They all seem super excited that we're back on the fold, ready to start dropping some gems and jewels for the eps and the podcasts and everything like that, man.
Yeah, brother, we're out here trying to step it up. Our second actual full season on YouTube about to kick off. So it's trying to do something a little with the graphics and the backgrounds. If you rocking with us on the YouTube subscriptions, if you will, and even if you're not rocking with us on YouTube, check us out. If you're just checking on the audio side, get to see these two young brothers live and in person and getting these graphics up and going, man. So yeah, man, excited for this. We are just a week away as we record from Media Day. So a lot of great storylines to kind of tap into, and then we'll have a Media Day recap, once that kind of takes place. But right now, it's all about the prequel. What's going to happen is what
what's
we're going to
happen, right? So our episode this week of the Baseline is, we're going to put on our journalistic hats a little bit. What if we were there at the Media Day presser, right? And what kind of questions will we really be asking? As all of these teams get themselves ready, for another exciting NBA season. So Shaw and I are going to put on our journalistic hats, whip out our steno notepads. I don't have my pencil and journalist hat on there and stuff like that, but you can imagine it. It looks pretty fly. And we're going to ask those tough questions. And hopefully we may be able to come up with those answers. That's just the way that we do things, right? So great episode on tap, man, and we hope that you guys will stay locked in with us here on the Baseline. As always, be sure to get on my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA. Get at me at Game Face Lee, the show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline, available on all the major platforms. You know where to find us. Go to www.thebaselinenba.com to catch this episode and all our previous episodes. And for those catching us on our YouTube channel that see the nice bright blue and white logo of the 19 Media Group, always remember that the Baseline rocks with the 19 Media Group family. 19 Media Group be running these content streets, so be sure to go to www.19mediagroup.com if you want to catch our show and the plethora of great content that the 19 Media Group rolls out. So be sure to head to that website and check out our family and check out all the great shows and personalities that are laying out those shows for you to listen to. So, Shaw, let's get right into it. This is the Under Pressure episode of the Baseline, right? Like we are doing this Media Day presser style, throwing some questions out there. And listen, these are kind of questions that I would hope that even you, the listener, would think about posing to some of these players and, these executives and coaches or whoever is made available during Media Day for your favorite, or if you're like someone that likes to troll your most hated team, the questions that you would like to be throwing out there to those dudes as well, too, right? Like, so this is the Media Day presser episode of the Baseline. And the first question that I think, if we were out in Portland, Shaw, right? Like, let's say we hopped into Hoopty because, we're feeling like it's time for us to do road trip, right? We don't want to be messing with the frequent flyer miles just yet. We hopped into Hoopty, drove all the way up to the northwest of the United States, out there in Portland land, and we decided to sit down in front of the Portland Trailblazer media. And I guess the question that really should be asked is, will Damian Lillard be anywhere but where we are right now. In other words, we get there and his presence isn't there. Are we going to be playing? Where in the world is Carmen Sandy Lillard, right? With
That
Portland.
was a good stretch. That was a good stretch.
I tried to stretch that one nicely. Or is he going to stay put, man? Are they going to be steadfast and hold Damian Lillard down for as long as necessary?
Well, let's go ahead and date ourselves. The minute we're going to say, I'm going to give this answer, things are going to move and change. But, I think, the question is, will Dame be in Portland for the beginning of media day? And then obviously throughout the course of the NBA season, I think the Blazers have made it clear that they are not enamored with what the Miami Heat have to offer. And, my guess is, Dame will have to show up and play things out in Portland. We touched on this over the course of the summer, and as many people did. But what I continue to maintain more than anything else is Lillard is not going to let his reputation take any more of a hit per se. He's not going to be the guy like, well, I asked for a trade, they didn't trade me, and now I'm going to just kind of hot dog it out here, show up out of shape, or not give my all. Like he's not really wired in that way, in the way some other players are. And I think he'll kind of grin and bear it. And maybe something will ultimately bear fruit down the line for the Portland Trail Blazers. But I think we will see Dame in Portland come media day next week. And just maybe with a little bit of a toot about it. But I think if he makes it to the preseason and ultimately games, I think he's going to be, the good soldier that we know him to be. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that the timing is so richly important for us to understand that if the Portland Trail Blazers were unable to figure out a way to move him at this point, then they're going to be, pretty steadfast in holding him where he is. And even if it's at the expense of Damian Lillard not suiting up to play, I think that, for Portland fans, they have already resigned themselves to the idea that Damian Lillard no longer wants to be there. And if it were me, I wouldn't care, right? That's not to say I would not want him out there on the basketball court, but let's be realistic. This is when entertainment and the business of basketball tend to kind of muddle things up a little bit. If you're an entertainer, you want to be entertained. And listen, there's no one better out there, in the Western Conference, entertaining folks and giving us Dame time better than Damian Lillard. But if you're an avid, hardened Portland Trailblazer fan and you just want to get on with the business of the Portland Trailblazers moving forward, you don't need to see him out there on the basketball court, because I fail to see where he's going to be a benefit to Scoot Henderson, a benefit to Anthony Simons, a benefit to Yusuf Nurkic, right? To me, I just think it's a distraction. And so ultimately, I think that if the parties handle it properly, Damian doesn't get all up in his feels about, because he drew the line anyway. He doesn't want to play for the Portland Trailblazers any longer. He wants to be moved. He should respect the fact that this process is going to leak itself into arguably the beginning of the NBA season, probably almost up to the NBA trade deadline, right? And that would mean sit it out and wait and see what a team wants to do, right? I will say, though, that the Portland Trailblazers will probably try to play hardball with Damian and say, listen, man, because obviously the NBA is telling Damian, yo, you can't do this, right? Like, you can't be talking and throwing out innuendos to other teams, dictating and demanding who the Portland Trailblazers should or should not be speaking to. But Portland is like, yo, you better be receptive to if the Philadelphia 76ers want to offer us something, if I'll go crazy, if the Boston Celtics were to offer something, right? Like, you better be receptive to other teams if it's a matter of putting him on the move and him just resisting to the idea of it. So I think he stays put, because I just don't see where they can make anything happen rushed. Portland has obviously tried a few times already to make something work with the Miami Heat. But clearly the intent here is that the Heat want to keep Bam and want to keep Butler. And somewhere in there, the Portland Trailblazers don't see any assets outside of giving up one of those dudes if they're planning to give up Damian Lillard. So the numbers are certainly working in Portland's favor to hold and steadfast. It's just a question of the respect factor that they're actually giving Damian Lillard on how he wants to approach this, so he doesn't make himself look like, the bad guy nor the martyr. And I think Portland fans as well too should be ready to move on from this and not worry about whether or not he's going to suit up and be on that basketball court come tip off.
All right. Well, I'm going to just follow up really quickly because I don't want to spend too much time. I've got a lot of questions, but your thoughts on it being anywhere else but Miami per se. So Toronto is throwing their name into this hat now. Chicago, you mentioned Philadelphia as a potential suitor. Do you think any one of those teams outside of Miami end up with Damian Lillard if he were to leave Portland?
Absolutely. I think any of those other teams have just as good a chance, because I think if you think like Damian Lillard will probably think, this is probably not even more about money like it was for Kyrie Irving, as much as it is him realizing that he'll probably have to do a stopgap, like, a stopgap at another team before finally going to where he wants to go. And it'll be interesting to see if a team or any teams are willing to pony up the money for a temporary Merc, for a possible run or deep run if they're in contention or in position to do so. So that's my take on it. I don't see where Damian Lillard, unless it's at the trade deadline and the Blazers and the Miami Heat do figure something out, I don't think that's going to wind up being his destination. I think it's going to be one of the other suitors out there that are really going to throw a much better package for Portland to consider. And I think Damian has to take that in consideration, that he's not immediately going to go to Miami, but eventually will get there.
All right. Good talk. Good talk. Good talk. We'll see, brother. Can't wait.
All right. Next up, Shaw and I hop in the hoopty and we make our way all the way back to the East Coast. Probably do need to get in the plane and start taking advantage of these frequent flyer miles. We're going East Coast, West Coast, bouncing back and forth. But anyway, we take our sights down to Philly, Shaw. And the situation out there for Philly is a little tenuous at best. How uncomfortable is James Harden ready to get, and will he appear at media day? Certainly he won't be appearing arm around shoulder with Daryl Morey, but do you think he'll appear at media day?
Yeah, so I think he's actually going to show up, because in some ways there's the need to play good soldier for the aspect of he's playing for a contract. So I think if he goes to the old Harden shenanigans, if you will, despite however he feels about Morey at this particular juncture, it just plays into a more negative narrative for him, in terms of him potentially getting his next deal. So it's in his best interest. Like it is, it literally is in his best interest to appear and to be his best self, no matter how disgruntled he actually is. So that's my take on it. I think Harden is probably willing to, bet against me, like, yeah, bro, sure, hold my beer. But if I'm his agent, I feel like you have to advise him in a way as like, listen, you said what you said, you did what you did, but understanding that you've finessed your way out of two situations over the last, 18 months or however, whatever it was, from Houston into Brooklyn and now into Philadelphia. Now this will be the third team that you're trying to move away from, and you're playing alongside the reigning MVP. It's just not good optics. So he doesn't have the same value that he once had, and he's still a very good player and even an all-star level player. But I think he's got to show up to Philadelphia, be at media day. Similarly, probably won't be as disgruntled. Well, maybe more disgruntled than Dame will even be in terms of like how he answers questions. Very, very short. But I think he's going to be there, and I think he's going to go through the motions.
Yeah, I think he's going to be there. But when have we ever believed that James Harden never gave a damn about comfort? James Harden only needs to worry about James Harden, right? That's how he's operated. That's been his MO. And it's interesting that as a basketball player, this fits him perfectly, right? Because in a day of self-marketing, nobody markets himself as the oddball, so to speak, or you know what I'm saying, the precariously gifted. It's almost like Harden has Kanye tendencies. There's a genius to his game, right? However, it only seems to translate his greatness and doesn't seem to translate in a resume that reflects someone who could be considered one of the greats of the game. He's definitely one of the greatest offensive players, especially from the Southpaw, to ever play this game. But because he is always looking out for himself, and look, that's a decision that he makes. And unfortunately, he's dealing with an organization that struggles so mightily with handling players that have to take care of themselves before they, take care of the team. And that's the biggest problem that really exists, because you can see how it's festered and has become kind of a cancer to how players perceive what's been taking place with the disappointing, exits during playoff runs, with the craziness that's taken place with some of the trades that have happened. If nothing else, I mean, James Harden is kind of a truth sayer a little bit, because he's exposing all of them. That's, what I'm saying? I don't know
Yeah.
whether or not he's infected them in that kind of way, but he's exposed the Ben Simmons of the world. He's exposed, even Tobias Harris, who probably was a nice, quiet guy until James Harden came aboard. And
Why
now
Tobias
he's
Harris catching strays, my guy? Tobias Harris ain't do
well,
nothing to nobody.
listen, all of them are catching it. Look, Tyrese Maxey is collateral damage because of this, right?
That part
And
is true.
and all of it is because of James Harden. So, with that being said, come media day, everyone is going to be asking these questions to all of the players. And then when you ask James Harden's going to answer how James Harden answers. You know what I'm saying? And he is not going to think twice about it. You're not going to see him, quiver. You're not going to see him second guess his statements or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? Because he don't care.
Well, I think, and the second part of this too, that I didn't add even to our show notes, but again, not to spend too much time on this topic, is what is Joel Embiid going to say about this circus?
Oh, Joel. I'm actually looking forward to what Joel Embiid is going to say, because it only takes. They're going to be apart, like they're going to be completely separate on the other sides of the court, right? We can already see this. And then somebody is going to ask James Harden a question. Once James Harden gives his soundbite, guess who's scurrying his little old ass over to the other side to get a retort of sorts, right? Which would definitely come from from Joel Embiid. And listen, we've seen Joel Embiid not sugarcoat anything he has to say about players that he doesn't really care for. You know what I'm saying? And he may say it jokingly, but he is dead serious.
No, I don't think there'll be any jokes about this one. And I'm again, all of what's happening in Philadelphia's media day, new coach and Nick Nurse coming into the fold, and his previous quips against Joel Embiid, and now having to manage a Harden situation. I think that's going to be one of the more spicier ones to come to watch when we get to October 2nd, family.
Absolutely. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And this is our pressure media day burning questions that we are kind of eliciting out there. We're soliciting out there for you guys to take notice on what we were expecting to hear, or what we would expect to hear from if we were at media day, for a lot of these teams, and what questions we would pose, to the organizations. All right, y'all. So let's shift our focus now to Milwaukee, right? This is probably the first time, we've been spoiled, right? Giannis Antetokounmpo is probably the most well-rounded individual as far as his ability to articulate, to show the passion that he has for the game, that he loves playing, the team that he plays for. It's amazing to me, Shaw, that when we talk about Giannis, rarely will we ever talk about Giannis saying something controversial. But it's interesting because this past season, he's said a couple of things that's kind of made you like, is he really like in his feels right now? Like, is there something like not right about what's going on over there in Milwaukee? Is he, you know what I'm saying? Is he feeling some kind of way? And obviously, with the pre-agency question that was posed to him, and now how his response was, does it feel like Giannis is precluding a possible exit from Milwaukee?
So he's got to be asked about, right? I think his comments came out in an article that had really nothing to do with basketball. I think it was about his business and stuff like that too, and it just kind of meandered into the Milwaukee Bucks conversation. And he says what he says, and it's like, hey, well, I need to be committed, and they need to be committed to me, and I can't promise that I'll be here forever if I don't feel like that commitment is duplicated, if you will. And again, paraphrasing to some degree, but Giannis, as one of the preeminent greats that the Bucks have ever had, brought that team, a championship. It's really interesting to kind of see how he's maneuvering here now. and leaving that door open for just doubt, that he would be back. And we understand, financially, he's not going to sign his extensions and all those things because he make more money as the TV money continues to rise. And so larger percent of the cap, that all makes sense. But the aspect of potentially leaving Milwaukee, and people have been wanting him to go to other markets for a very, very long time. I think since the last time we had this rodeo, when his free agency, or sorry, his contract extension was in question. I think he's going to downplay that. I think he's going to walk it back a little bit to not be a distraction, because I think he sees what it's kind of caused here in the short term. But if he doesn't, if he doubles down, then it's going to be a very, very wild and controversial season, I think, in Milwaukee. Again, new coach and Adrian Griffin. They re-upped on Brook Lopez, re-upped on Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday is going to be up for an extension here pretty soon as well, too. It just puts so much pressure on that team to feel like they have to win now. And they do, but I think it's something different when he's putting the pressure on them as like, hey, I'm going to leave y'all. I'm going to peace out on y'all if things don't go a certain way, as opposed to like, hey, let's play the season out and let's just try to focus on winning basketball.
So here's where I think there's a difference between how Giannis would probably handle this situation and how, say, LeBron would handle this situation. LeBron James, knowing that any decision that he makes, any thoughts that he gives, perspective that he provides, all of that is weighed so heavily, right? He has earned that equity, right, within any organization that he plays for, and so his word is golden. And I feel like what Giannis alluded to and spoke of was something that allows him the ability, and maybe we see it, I don't know, I'm just saying from my perspective. To me, it gives off this air that he believes he's in a space that's very similar to LeBron James. That he's commanded that level of respect from the Milwaukee Bucks organization. And so when you make those type of pronouncements, whether it was intentional or accidental, right? And organizations act upon that, you have to own what will be, I guess, the fallout should you not succeed, right? Now, we don't look at it in that perspective. And if this is as a media day, I would be interested to see if someone would challenge him in that regard, because of what now he is in a way has initiated, right? Like even though he's made these statements now, Shaw, let's not act like he has not had a very heavy influence on the decisions that the Milwaukee Bucks have made the last couple of seasons, and seen how quickly they have fallen short from getting more than one championship. And you have to wonder if a person like Giannis, who is arguably one of the best players in basketball, if not the best player in basketball from a talent perspective, if someone like Nikola Jokic usurps him one chip over, you know what I'm saying? What are we now talking about? Like for a guy like Giannis, what is that going to say about him and how he handles things? We're going to say, awesome guy to play, to put on our team and help win a championship. But under no circumstances should his voice lend to how an organization should operate in a window of where winning needs to be at a very high level, simply because of how he comes off, or how he's dictating into making these type of demands. And I find that to be the interesting aspect of this with Giannis, is that I'm not discrediting anything that he has done and accomplished up to this point, but these type of statements kind of lend itself to say, well, hold up a second. What has the Milwaukee Bucks done since 2021, right? And so you're saying that now if the organization isn't doing enough for you to win, it means that you may have to go somewhere in which they're going to put their stand for winning. Well, look at what the team had to commit to for what they thought is what you needed to win. So now you're telling us differently? See, LeBron never put himself in that type of situation. He may have said, I want to play with these guys because he trusted them. But he's never said, oh, the organization was never doing enough for me, when he knew that they gave him exactly what he wanted, and it was up to him to deliver on those goods.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about framing, right? So, if Giannis is going to go down this path, knowing kind of the things that you alluded to, it's cost them multiple draft picks. They did get a chip out of it, right? But it's like, the old adage, well, what have you done for me lately? Right. Well, there's no more picks to give away. The cupboard is kind of bare there. And so it's a matter of, how can you continue to cultivate the team in a way and bring them up to the level? But they are getting older as well. And so I think, Giannis not Giannis, sorry, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday on the other side of 30 here. There's some real questions here about how they're going to move forward. Brook Lopez, same thing on the other side of 30, the wrong side of 30. So we'll see, what ends up happening. But I am intrigued by the fact that he did come out here and make these statements. And like I said, I want to see does he double down on media day and say, yeah, I meant what I said. I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on this thing, or it's like let's just let's put that behind us here. I just want to focus on winning a chip.
Yeah. The only other thing I will say this as well too is let's not also overlook the fact that Milwaukee, I think, has missed on some opportunities for them to, and again, maybe part of it is because of the pressure inflicted by Giannis, whether it be accidental or intentional, of his desire to keep the team, to keep the core of the team as is. But you could clearly see that the Milwaukee Bucks, I think, had a couple of opportunities where they could have made some type of moves to be able to kind of make this a longer term, open the window up for a longer term for the Milwaukee Bucks, even if it may have been to the immediate pleasure of Giannis's desire to keep the team as is. If it's about them continuing to win and continuing to compete, you look at the dynamic of that team and you say to yourself, can they get over the hump, knowing that Father Time is not on their side, for some of these players as well too, like Middleton and maybe even Brook Lopez. You know what I'm saying? They have to get better at certain places, and I don't know if they left themselves room to be able to do that. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Coming up, we'll get more into some burning questions, man. We got one out for the New Orleans Pelicans and Zion. You know what I'm saying? Listen, Zion is doing his thing. Chris Paul in Golden State. Is he going to be doing his thing out there in Grizzly land? Ja Morant, you know what I'm saying? He's going to be missing a thing, but when he comes back, will he be that thing? So there's like a lot of questions that we want to get out there. We got a lot of places to travel to in order to throw out those pressure questions so you don't want to miss out. But first, we got to do the plugs, man. Are you ready to step up your style game without compromising the planet? Introducing an exciting partnership with Blue View Footwear and the 19 Media Group Network. Blue View Footwear is renowned for introducing the world's first fully biodegradable and durable sneaker to lead a revolution in cleaner materials and manufacturing. They offer a sleek and contemporary styles that cater to a wide range of tastes. Blue View has fully revolutionized the footwear industry. Their innovative plant-based sneakers are constructed of 100% biodegradable materials without sacrificing durability for environmental responsibility. Blue View Footwear believes that fashion and sustainability can coexist. Just visit bit.ly/BlueView19 and you'll see the ultimate collaboration of fashion, sustainability, and media excellence. Once again, go to bit.ly/BlueView19 in order to check out the awesome footwear from the company. And as always, if you do make a purchase through that link, you will also supporting the Baseline. And as always, we appreciate you for your patronage. Coming up, more burning questions here on the Baseline. We are back, Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast, and our episode of the show this week is Media Day burning questions. Like, if we were actually there during Media Day at all of these locations, what questions will we be posing to the organization and players alike? So the next team that we want to, make our way out to is out in New Orleans. Obviously, Zion has had quite the interesting offseason so far. I don't know what to say about where we are with the New Orleans Pelicans when this is all said and done. But if we were actually there, Shaw, I think the question that we would want to ask him is, are you ready to put the summer well behind you and really answer the tough questions that need to be answered about, one, your availability, and two, if whether or not this is your your year to take onus of this basketball team and put them in places that a lot of people are hoping and praying for, especially out of the NOLA.
Yeah, I think a lot of what, we're going to get the answer to parts of the questions just by, I think, his overall physical appearance, right? Does he look trim, chiseled for what he is? And is he taking his diet and nutrition seriously, right? We're starting to see some of that over the course of the summer, but all that drama that he had going on, with the stripper that he was courting, and however you want to phrase that,
Ryan Middles,
I'm just gonna leave it at that.
aka the windmill.
So he was in, some sort of situationship, with the young lady and, the in the adult
He was
film
in something. I
industry.
don't know if it was a relationship, but he was in something.
I said a situationship. So he was in a situationship with that young lady, and that caused a lot of drama for him. So was he able to put that to the side, right? Focus on basketball, which she accused him blatantly of not ever really being able to do. And then you started to see that even some of his teammates saying, like, listen, he seems like he quit on them. And so there's some mending offenses that needs to happen there. And I think if you're in the media for the New Orleans Pelicans media day, again, how does he look? And then the questions of, like, how are you now mentally ready as well as physically ready to kind of put a dramatic summer, a bad season really behind you and contribute to a team that had so much potential? You forget they were in first place, right? In mid-December. And we're like, yo, this team is coming out of nowhere. And he was playing at a high level again. And Ingram was still in and out of the lineup. And he was really seeming like he was going to be able to carry that roster. And then it like, as it always seems to do, it just goes away because of all the injuries that he continues to suffer. This is a roster that really needs him to be a leader on this team, and not necessarily in the locker room sense, but definitely on the floor in terms of producing and giving up big numbers that he's very much capable of.
So what do we say, Shaw, has been the number one theme when it comes to a lot of these superstars and the expectations of what they're supposed to bring an organization and a fan base, right? The best ability is availability. And that's just really what it comes down to. But I'm going to flip this because you really, you interestingly alluded to the one aspect that I think should actually be at the forefront. I think this ability that he needs to really make sure is on point with lends to the physical ability, right? His mental ability, Shaw. Like, what I'm saying is him being completely focused on playing basketball, right? That all of these other things that are going on. Listen, there's tons of players out there that have all kinds of craziness. I mean, you just don't find out about it because they really do a good job of keeping that stuff under wraps. You know what I'm saying? Or they're just so that damn good that even whatever the drama looks like, you can completely tell it does not faze them, right? One thing that I lend to when I think about this, Shaw, Kobe Bryant. Think about the drama that Kobe Bryant really inflicted upon himself, right? And part of that was just lack of maturity. But when you listen to him talk, when you listen to him, answer questions, when you see how he acts when he goes on, you can completely tell there's a Jekyll and Hyde effect. He knows how to separate Kobe that wants to play from Kobe, the man about the business of playing and winning championships for the Los Angeles Lakers, right? And that's unfortunately something that a lot of these young players just seem to either lack or don't really understand or have not taken the time to properly understand. And Zion falls right into that fold. His mental focus needs to be about the game of basketball. If the New Orleans Pelicans believe that the expectations for them to win a championship cannot be done without him being on that basketball court. So it's as simple as this. If he's still addressing nonsense that's off the court and not the stuff that's really on the court, it doesn't matter how physically chiseled he is. It doesn't matter if he dropped 150 pounds or if he's like looking like, Ronnie Coleman, you know what I'm saying, on the basketball. It doesn't matter because it will mean nothing, because for him to get through the season, he has to be mentally locked in order for the New Orleans Pelicans to have a serious shot at making a deep run in the playoffs, let alone this idea about them being a possible contender for some type of championship.
I mean, that's what it all stems down to. So, ironically, there's another person in, his draft class that, we are going to be worried about, how his mental state is going to be coming in and when he gets back as well, too. So, Zion has a lot to figure out, as do the Pelicans in terms of how they want to bring him back into the process of their team and what maturation has he been able to show again after what was a very, very strange and odd season. And they only got worse and exacerbated by, some of the summer drama that he experienced.
And I got to say this as well too, Shaw. One thing that I would probably expect Zion not to, this media day. So of course you got to be out there, throw out the smiles, kiss the babies, and all the other good stuff. But I would expect him to say less, right? I want him to say less. I think the less you say, the more focused I think you are, because some of these guys love to eat them, love themselves being in that camera, love themselves getting that seeing that digital flash, love getting those clicks. If you are someone who's like, listen, I'm about the business of the business, and you leave it at that, I think most of the guys in the media realize that they need to give you your space and give you the requisite time necessary for you to really get comfortable being the guy that everybody is hoping that you'll be. And I say that even from your teammates' perspective. So it'll be interesting to see what version of Zion Williamson comes out there. Because when he smiles and cheeses, all this stuff, all I keep thinking to myself is, yep, another injury. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Not gonna make it through the season.
That's a weird association. I'm gonna let you ride with that. I
Yeah,
mean, just because a guy
let me ride with it.
is cordial and is quotable doesn't
He's
mean that.
right. No, what I'm just basically saying is that sometimes we get consumed with the obligations of being that guy, being that personality,
Mhm.
and we don't take care of the necessary. Sometimes you got to be an a-hole in order for you to make sure that you get what needs to be accomplished. And then you can go back to being nice to people. But everybody wants you to stay nice because they're getting what they need from you, which is more questions about who you are and what you're it just gives them reason to hang around you. But I think the less that you give them that, look at Kobe Bryant and the way he got after that situation in Denver, right? He made sure that he like basically inoculated himself from trying to be the Kobe Bryant Los Angeles Lakers Showtime personality front face type of guy, and suddenly became the Black Mamba, as they say. You know what I'm saying? Like, he became the Black Mamba because he shut all of that stuff down and he made everyone see first the business of him winning for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think a lot of people respected him for that, even though that part of his life still hung over him until he started showing them that he was a family man and he was about being a girl
Mhm.
dad and all that other kind of stuff. So, all right, let's move forward because we got another dude we got to call out on this craziness as well too. But first, we got to go to Golden State. And obviously, the big move of Chris Paul going to Golden State. And we thought it was a prank. We thought, all right, so where's the next destination Chris Paul's going to? Because this can't be actually the last stop, or the final destination for him. But lo and behold, as we sit here, Shaw, no movements have been made. So Golden State is dug all in on CP3 being a part of this run, possible last run that the Golden State Warriors are going to make. Is Chris Paul prepared to come off the bench in Golden State, or is Golden State prepared for Chris Paul to come off the bench?
Yeah, a great question. I think that he has been asked. I think formally, it's been litigated in the media almost at nauseum over the course of the summer. And there's a lot of Warrior faithful who feel like, listen, yeah, bro, just go ahead and do that. You don't need to be in this starting lineup. You can reserve your body as well to play with that second unit on a team that may not need what he can offer in that first unit. And he might be better served getting the Kamingas of the world and getting them shots, by virtue of his potentially play creation there. So I think it's going to be an interesting question. We've seen him in the summer here now, working with Draymond and some others as well, too, trying to build some rapport and chemistry. There was some healing that needs to be done from when they were, opponents on opposite teams. But I'm very interested to see what's going to happen there and how he handles that. And I think he's not going to give us the Carmelo who me. I think he's going to be like, whatever the team needs us to do, needs me to do, I'm willing to do that. So I'm going to take a positive light on this here as Chris Paul joins a team that has obviously won 4 championships.
Look, man, at first I wasn't really understanding the logic of this move by the Golden State Warriors, and then after seeing and rewatching some of Chris Paul play, I can understand why this move had to be done. You know what I'm saying? I really genuinely understand why this had to be done. I don't know if whether or not this was overall the best move for Golden State, but if you're going to make a move, certainly make sure that you make a move that I think shakes the dynamic up a little bit and really kind of changes the mentality, of what this team needs to be comprised of if there's a real expectation that they're going to make a run. Like, you could see that the last couple of years, Golden State have been making experimental moves, experimental trades, and they've not panned out. This one, you can't fail at this one because the player himself will refuse to fail. The player himself can morph into whatever it is you ask of him because he just wants to win. And as much as people dislike Chris Paul for that, it's the very same reason a lot of people respect him for that as well too. And if you're going to have two bulldogs in the pit, I probably would rather have those bulldogs on my side of the pit than at each other. So with Draymond and CP3, Curry and Thompson and CP3, man, that's a lot of pit bulls. You know what I'm saying? And they all got a lot of grievances. They all got a lot of attitude, so to speak, with the way that the young movement has operated in space. I want to see if whether or not Chris Paul can exude that, against his former team in Phoenix. I want to see if whether or not he can exude that against, some of the other teams that the Golden State Warriors have some issues with, like against the Memphis Grizzlies, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe the Sacramento Kings. So it'll be interesting to see where Chris Paul fits himself. But listen, let it not be said, it don't take much for Chris Paul to be a part of the, you know what I'm saying, all of the shenanigans that go on, because he himself is full of those things, right? So this might actually play itself out well for Golden State. Whether or not that translates to them being a top 3, top 4 team in the Western Conference, who knows? But I like the idea that he can morph himself into being a valuable asset to the Golden State Warriors, rather than the Warriors investing so much of trying to morph these young guys that they thought could do that, and they just never pan out.
Yeah, let me just say this really quickly. I think a lot of it is like coming off the tenor of how they started last year. If he comes in here with a negative attitude, now again, it's not going to derail their season in the way that a punch did, to another teammate. But again, they just don't want to have another beginning to their season where there's drama involved. So if he's like, hey, whatever they need me to do, whether that's come off the bench or I'm going to start, whatever that is. And I think Kerr's going to have to define that role pretty quickly. So the question really should be two-part, to Steve Kerr and Chris Paul, kind of about what that role definement ultimately is going to be, because they just need to get off to a good start after their whole season being derailed by that punch with Draymond and Jordan Poole last year.
All right, man. Listen, I might throw a little foreshadowing out there to you, because we may wind up doing our awards previews. I'll be on the lookout for Chris Paul being that 6th man of the year, buddy.
I mean, that's a real possibility.
There's a real possibility.
If he's willing to accept the role, there's a real possibility there.
Mm-hmm. All right. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, continuing our episode of the Media Day Burning Questions. So, Shaw, out in Memphis. Ja. Sometimes I wish he did, he leaned on Haile Selassie for some pure guidance, for some of the foolishness that he done put himself through. But listen, it is what it is. He's had to, swallow the bitter pill. Obviously the Memphis Grizzlies are going to have to, play essentially a quarter of a season, more than a quarter of a season without him. So what do we make of this, Shaw? If you're the Memphis Grizzlies, how do you allow Ja Morant back into the facility and, can he mend bridges? And let me throw this out there, as well too. We've already seen out in baseball, right, with Fernando Tatis Jr., with the nonsense that he pulled and leaving his team, hanging when they had an opportunity, to make a World Series run last year, and how it impacted, the dynamic of this baseball team to such an extent that even though when he came back, this Padres team still wasn't in sync. There's always talent. You know what I'm saying? Talent is everywhere. But what you do with that talent and what that talent translates to the other guys that you have to play with and for, I think makes all the difference in the world of whether or not people really buy into the sincerity of you coming back and really being about this organization and being about the team, or whether or not you just bullshucking and jiving.
Yeah, now real talk. And I think what's going to happen here is, like, I would be mildly surprised if we see Ja in any capacity at media day, and even understanding the terms of the suspension, right? Because I believe it's the NBA who suspended him and not the team. So can he even be in the facility in media day? I don't think that's a possibility. But when does he have the ability and right to start ramping back up, coming around his teammates, mending those bridges in person in the facility? Because I'm sure you can see them off the court and whatever the various spaces, restaurants, whatever the case may be, but can he come back there? And I think we probably won't see Ja in the actual facility until about a month before he's due back, right? So if he's due back sometime in December, sometime in November is when he's probably start ramping back up and even practicing with the team to some degree, preparing for his return, assuming he's done everything that he's needed to do from the NBA standpoint and even the team standpoint. But I would be maybe even more than mildly surprised if we see him on October 2nd in the facility in any capacity, because I'm sure he's going to stay away from the media and answering questions. But I think just even being there to work out, I don't think they're going to allow him back in just yet.
Yeah. So look, they're gonna the Memphis Grizzlies are going to pull out, how to shield our star player playbook, and they're gonna follow it to a T. And I just think it's not a good thing for the Memphis Grizzlies. I genuinely think that sometimes quality players need to learn the hard way about how quickly they need to mature and how they need to own the situation for what it's worth. If Ja Morant wants to come back to that facility, if you are the Memphis Grizzlies, I think the Memphis Grizzlies should be like, you need to earn the right to come back to this facility, right? If you really think about it, Ja Morant did two things that were really foul. The first thing that he did is he did all of this nonsense, and then in public on public television, basically lied to everybody that he, has mental problems and went on a sabbatical and did all of these things. He was BSing, right? So he lied to the quote unquote the NBA faithful, which can be a bitter pill to swallow, because if you don't live up to the hype, if you don't live up to the standards that you set, everybody's going to call you out all the time. But the other big thing that he did is he lied to the organization, the very organization that put Jenkins out there. The ownership is out there. All of these media people, PR people out there speaking on your behalf, and you're running around doing some nonsense that is contrary to what it is that they're speaking to. I just believe if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, and look, I understand if your team is down, if you're so many games, out of playoff contention, or, you realize that, this run may actually be a real run, and you obviously feel like Ja Morant's the person to get you over the top, you're going to basically suck it up. You're going to compromise, and you're going to allow him to come back into the facility. And in essence, it's going to act as if, nothing ever occurred. I just lend myself to the idea that you lied to this organization. Like, this organization is giving you everything at this point, right? We gave you everything you needed. We gave you everything you wanted. And even then, we're still trying to protect you. You need to do right by us for a change. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to see if whether or not the Memphis Grizzlies really do that, because I think that's the only way a person like Ja Morant will properly understand the magnitude of his actions. It can't happen, just because we're following the NBA protocol of how we allow superstar athletes who get in trouble to come back in and just act as if everything is good and everything is on the norm. It's really the organizations and the way that they lay this out and make sure that they hold that player's feet to the fire. And I think a lot of it as well, too, is whether the players are on board with that as well, too. Like, that should be a question should be posed. Like, do you want Ja Morant just walking up in here like everything is all good and he can just assimilate himself again like nothing ever happened? Or do you make him earn that respect? Like, he needs to earn that respect in the locker room, earn that respect on during practices, earn that respect during the team dinners and on the team flights and things of that nature. I would love to see if whether or not an organization holds a guy like Ja Morant to that kind of high account.
Well, again, not to belabor it, I would just, only maybe not even challenge, but maybe somewhat, kind of just, we have to quit him into some degree. I don't know that we can say that he lied about whatever his mental issues may have been and what his state was. We can't say that he lied about that. I think there's some evidence that would lend to that, to maybe make us not believe that. But we can't say that unequivocally that that's what happened.
Let me correct that part, Shaw. I didn't mean to say it as saying he lied about his mental state. I meant to say he lied about addressing his mental state. In other words, he said that he went and did what he did, and everybody knows that that's not what really happened.
All right, brother. Fair enough.
All right. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. We got the last part of our Media Day burning questions to throw out at you. Got some good stuff on the men, so you don't want to miss out. But before we do that, man, hey, NBA store fans, if you are looking for the ultimate destination for NBA gear, look no further than the NBA store. With a huge selection of authentic and high-quality products, including jerseys, hats, and accessories, the NBA store has everything you need to show off your team pride. Plus, with exclusive and limited edition items, you can make your collection truly one of a kind. And with an online presence, you can shop from anywhere in the world. Don't miss out on the latest trends and experiences. Visit the NBA store today by clicking our affiliate link. If you're listening to us on your favorite audio platform, be sure to check the link in the description of the show. The Baseline is working in affiliation with the NBA store/Fanatics and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing our link. We thank you for your support. Coming up, more NBA Media Day burning questions here on The Baseline. All right, we are back. Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA Podcast, and this week's episode, Media Day burning questions. We've been traveling all over the U.S., Shaw, man. We've been making it work, man. Throwing out all of these interesting questions that we would want to ask the organizations or teams or players, for that matter, during NBA Media Day. And so let's go ahead and set our sights out in Phoenix, Shaw. Obviously, the big move of the Phoenix Suns getting Bradley Beal, adding to the roster. Will Bradley Beal be a primary playmaker for the Phoenix Suns?
I love it.
I would not ask that question to Bradley Beal. I would ask that question to Kevin Durant because I want to see how smart, how smart ass of an answer he would like to throw a response back at me for even posing that question.
I mean, but that's what they're saying, right? He's going to be the guy, and he did spend some time at point in Washington some seasons ago, primary playmaker and shot creator for himself as well. But now with Booker and KD, on the wings, hey, is he going to be the one who's going to distribute on a regular basis? And it could be argued that both Booker and Durant actually have better or more natural playmaking skills. So I think with that, the fact that this has come out somewhat a little bit is the reason why we want to even question this aspect. It's like, all right, is it really going to be Beal who can play create, so to speak, but is probably still better, coming off the ball and pin downs and spotting up to some degree. But he does have a little ability to create for himself. I think it's over amplified, or the way it was in Washington when he had to kind of be the play creator for others as well. And I obviously know Booker and Durant are elite, but I think they're more natural at it. But at the end of the day, they're also better scorers than he is too. So I guess, by default, he kind of has to take a lesser role, and he won't be a 25 point per game guy, but maybe he's a 22, 21 point per game guy. And getting 6, 7, 8 assists a night. But it's interesting because I think Booker and Durant can also do some of those things. So how will they share the load when it comes to playmaking duties in Phoenix?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting question through the course of the year. And it's funny, Shaw, because I think people are going to look at that question and translate wins in order to determine that answer. When I think what you really should want to look at is who should be the person, with the rock in crunch time. Who is the person that you want to make the initial run so that the Suns are separating themselves from whoever they're playing against. And I think it also comes back to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. While Bradley Beal, I think, is a great player. I wonder if whether or not this version and what version that comes out playing next to both of these guys, what version of Bradley Beal is going to emerge. And so whether it's be someone that you're saying should be a primary playmaker, or maybe he has to turn himself into a primary play creator. My question is always going to be is for Bradley Beal, will he be at the maximum level of whatever version the Suns need of him in order for them to have this trifecta that they formed? And it'll be interesting to see if that happens, because I personally believe when you look at Bradley Beal's career, and I think he's had an extraordinary career given the circumstances, I don't think he's ever really done anything so extremely well. You know what I'm saying? Like, he does things great, right? When he had opportunity to really, you know, elevate himself to such a level, well beyond that of John Wall, for example. He really only elevated himself to so much, and partly because of the fact he couldn't stay healthy, but mainly because of the fact that like his ascension for shooting the basketball was more gradual. Like he shoots the basketball well, but for someone like who he was and when he came out of the University of Florida, we were expecting him to be something shooting the basketball very Klay Thompson-esque. You know what I'm saying? Not Curry, but Klay Thompson, Dame Lillard-esque, right? And I don't think that he does that even on that level. I think he's the next tier below that. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Suns are going to do in order to put him in a position where he could be that kind of shooter, where he could be that kind of scorer, because I think that's what the Suns are going to ultimately need. So I'm very interested to see how long they're going to stick to this idea that they want to make him the primary playmaker. But if they suddenly realize that his shooting isn't as quite on point as what they're hoping that should be, well, guess who's going to wind up taking those shots again? Devin. And then what are you going to do with Bradley Beal? He ain't coming off the bench. He's going to have to learn how to facilitate that basketball to the guys who can go out there and get those buckets a lot easier than Bradley Beal will.
Wow, you are a doomsday here, my guy. I mean, think about it from this standpoint. So Beal has been averaging, over 5 assists a game for the last, 4 or 5 seasons. So he had 2 seasons in a row, he was over 30. Then he dropped down into 23 and 23 the last couple of years or whatever the case may be, but still 5, 6 assists. So that's where I understand why they're trying to potentially do it. But also think about the teammates he played with. While last year, Kuzma and Porzingis, were probably some of the better teammates that he's had in terms of running mates in recent years. Now you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So shots for him are going to be easier because the gravitas of those two guys are immense. So he'll get better looks and obviously should improve his efficiency. So I think we may say similar numbers even last year at Washington, 23-6, 23-5, whatever it is, but with like very, very high efficiency that would probably speak to what you're talking about here now. So if he can get back into, and he shot 50% last year. So, if he can get back into that 51, 52%, as a guard, as a lead guard, if you will, handling the basketball, that'll make Phoenix extremely dangerous. Because again, the gravity of Durant and Booker are so immense that I think Booker is poised to have a very, very great statistical and even more importantly, efficient year for the Phoenix Suns.
If you said if, okay.
I did.
Sorry, I was leaning a lot more into my doomsday mentality. All right, Shaw. Which youth movement is ready to make a leap? Banchero's Magic or Cade's Pistons? We're trying to, meet the teams in the middle here. We obviously can't be in Orlando and Detroit at the same time. So
yeah, so this is a baseline media day question because we can't ask Paulo, hey, are you going to be better than Cade? And Cade, are you going to be better than Paulo? I think
we'll use what is it? What is that? X Musk.
That would be in poor taste. Let's call it that.
That.
I think it's a great question. Both of these teams, I think, are young, a lot of young talent on their roster. I'd say only by virtue of what we saw last year because they were healthier, as Orlando is probably slightly ahead of where the Pistons are. But I think it's a question that if you were to ask either one of them, they both got to feel like they're worth their salt, especially with Detroit having new coach in tow. Bogdanovich in here for a second year. Obviously, Cade coming back, Jaden Ivey only to potentially get better. But I think on the Magic side, their draft picks and then obviously getting Jonathan Isaac back if he's, even really going to play, Wendell Carter and obviously Banchero. These are two really, really great basketball teams, young basketball teams that are really, really ready to come from the bottom of the Eastern Conference here and try to fight their way into at least in playing game. I think both of these teams have that level of talent if they can be healthy throughout the course of the season. But I don't even know which one to pick because I think, they are probably equal to me. And I'd be interested to see kind of what the Vegas odds are in terms of their over-unders.
I think Paul Banchero will be very confident in believing that the Magic are ready to take that next step. And I think Cade will believe that, both, with him leading the Pistons, that they're going to, take, tremendous strides, to quote unquote upset the apple cart a little bit right now. So I like it. I like the idea of the confidence that both of these teams are going to have with these players, given what they've been doing, especially in the offseason and the work that they put in to really put people on notice that, they are going to be they're going to be the future, the next generation, of the hybrid score from the wing position again, it kind of fell off, but now you're seeing a resurgence with Banchero and with Cade Cunningham and what they can bring to the table. So I'm liking the idea of what that means. And I think ultimately I like the Pistons. I think that there's more able bodies that have more definitive roles that Monty can work with. And I think as long as Cade is healthy, Monty is gonna hone in on what he's already seen from Cade, who I think by leaps and bounds is like in a really great position to make his team overall better. I think Banchero is going to be shouldering a lot of the burden of putting the ball in the basket and doing a lot of other things. And I think the rest of the team is going to have to catch up with him in order to be on that level that he's on already. But they do have a really good team, and I hope that the players don't get lost in that fabric of playing under Banchero or the game going through Banchero, because they really do have some quality players that I really think they can elevate and possibly create their own trifecta, so to speak, or even a deep team with the type of talent that the Magic has kind of had, roaming around over the last couple of seasons. But whether or not it all comes together, I think really is going to depend on the leadership skills for both of those players. Final question, Shaw, for our listeners and also for our version of Burning Questions of Media Day. Is this the year of MPJ, or are the Nuggets' true big three Jokic, Murray, and Aaron Gordon?
This is definitely a you question. I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you first, man. What are your thoughts on MPJ? Because you seem to be a little fixated on my guy here, and what he's capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing within that system. You asked me this when we did their autopsy as well, and I was just like, well, they want a chip. So I think he's got to just continue to do what he does. Even with Bruce Brown out, I just don't really see why he has to try to do too much.
Well, I don't think it's a question of doing too much, but I do think it's a question of the team relying on MPJ, to take his game and really to make it, full front center, another dimension that makes arguably the best basketball team, because they won the championship again coming into this year, to be the best basketball team, right? The one interesting part of this, Sean, the reason why I threw the question out more so was because if you look at the way that the Nuggets are set up, you've got really two offensively explosive players and this one dude who suddenly has become such a sound defensive, versatile player in Aaron Gordon. And look, Mike Malone was a defensive minded type of guy, right? But he understands the kind of tools that he has in his toolbox to work with. So I think it's allowed him to be patient with MPJ, especially over the last couple of seasons. And I just wonder if now we've seen MPJ win a chip, Jokic win that chip, Murray win that chip. Does he rely on the fact that, for this team dynamically to still be at the top of the food chain, are you going to lean a lot more into what MPJ is going to bring to the table to complement Jokic and Murray? Or do you like the idea that he can still be in the shadows, right? And just mainly be about what Jokic, Murray, and Gordon were able to show people in their run to winning that championship. And so I like the idea of Gordon, but I do think that this could be the year of MPJ, where people really start taking note as to what this guy can be as a mismatch problem, as an added problem already that the Nuggets pose from a lineup standpoint. You can't mess with Jokic like that. Murray, he's a guard, so he'll have his moments. He'll be streaky, but he's dynamic. But MPJ is a mismatch problem if he plays up to that level and Mike Malone buys into using that as a means to complement what the Nuggets do.
All right, I'm gonna say Michael Porter Jr. is your guilty pleasure, man. Like you want this
That's
guy.
Right. My 50 shades of MPJ. There you go.
Whoa there. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. This show is going off the rails, yo.
Off the rails, completely off the rails. Good show altogether, Shaw. Great stuff. I'm sure we could have traveled all around, man, and found some, other places that we would have loved to have been to. Boston, out there in Clipperland, Lakerland. We may have to do another part do like part 2 of these burning questions and see what those other organizations and teams would have been throwing out there.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get some answers from those teams and organizations as media day unfolds itself too. So when we're back next week, we'll probably tap in on that, see the status of Kawhi and PG. What do they give us anything to kind of work off of, to get our fans and listeners going here? So, but yeah, great one to kind of get back into the rhythm of the NBA season. We are literally a week away from media day. So exciting times here for the baseline, man. What is this, season 11? Man, we rolling, brother. We rolling.
We rolling, man. We ain't going nowhere. Once again, we'd like to thank you and yours for hopping on board with us this week for the baseline. Kylie, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. We do. And we'll catch up with you next time.